this week on Podular Modcast.
Our options and our choices are being totally limited down to this incredibly narrow band of possibilities by some tech bro in Silicon Valley. And who knows what their morals are, and who knows what their priorities are. They just want to have a job. They want to get a raise. Like, that's their priority.
Welcome back to Podular Modcast. My name is Tim Held. This week we have Greg Saunier from Deerhoof. Deerhoof is one of my favorite bands. Greg is the founding member and drummer. They've been around for a long time. They're totally singular, in my opinion. And they're actually going to be on tour soon in the Midwest of the United States. So if you're out there, do not miss Deerhoof live. One of the best live shows I've ever seen. I'm not going to spend this whole intro gushing about how much I love Deerhoof. Just take my word for it. We have a great conversation, and we're going to get into that chat here shortly. But first, I want to show you some cool stuff. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 Podular Modcast shirts left. Past show guest Avril Laverne from Grilka Press did that logo for me. It looks familiar, but I don't know where it's from. But anyways, I've got 1 tie-dyed small, 1 white small, I've got 2 tie-dyed XLs, and then I have 2 tie-dyed double XLs and 2 white double XLs. If you would like one of these, $10 plus shipping. Send me a message, hit me up in the DMs. And then I've also got some posters with download codes on the back. This art was done by John Herndon, aka Grape Dope, one of the founding members of the band Tortoise. And then he also did this one as well. So if you are a Patreon subscriber, be on the lookout, because I think I'm going to do another giveaway. I've got some cassettes from my buddy Ian, old co-host Ian, under his Skygas moniker. I almost said nomiker. That's not right. Skygas moniker. I think I have 5 of those cassettes. So yeah, I'm going to be doing another random first come first serve giveaway. But if you are a Patreon subscriber and you're interested in one of these, just pay for shipping and I'll ship you one. Now the reason I am having you guys pay for shipping if you want one is because if I sent one to everybody, it would cost me like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and I don't have hundreds and hundreds of dollars right now. So yeah, with that said, if you'd like to support Podular Modcast, head over to patreon.com/Podular Modcast. But if you don't want to sign up for the Patreon because you don't want to do a monthly thing and all that, that's totally fine. There are other ways to support Podular Modcast. I am actually starting to do music videos, or I can make videos for visuals for live performance. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can send me a DM or an email at podmodcast@gmail.com. So because the music video thing is relatively new for me, I think I'm going to focus on just kind of making the types of videos that I make for myself, for my performances, sans the performer. So just, video essays, video collages. I would like to do story-based stuff in the future, but I think I should just start small for now. So if you are interested, like I said, hit me up. Let's collaborate. I think that'd be really fun. And that actually nicely segues into this week's featured artist, Mountain Singers. The song is Awkward Conversations. So why don't we take a listen to that? If you're watching the video, I'm going to cut something together just to give you a little bit of a taste of my style and whatnot. So let's do that. Podular Modcast, as always, is brought to you by the lovely folks over at Patchworks. Patchworks is more than just a synthesizer, music gear shop. They're building a community by connecting you to the joy of music with workshops, classes, live music events, and friendly, knowledgeable staff. They are there to help you with wherever it is you are at in your music making journey. Located in the Wallingford neighborhood in Seattle, stop by Patchworks showroom to play with your favorite music gear and join their community. And if you don't live in the Pacific Northwest region of the world, then head over to patchworks.com, patchwerks.com, where they have not just the latest and greatest in modular, but all sorts of synthesizer gear, as well as home studio equipment. Once again, that is patchwerks.com, patchwerks.com. In other news, I am working on an intro to Eurorack workshop, like a 2-hour workshop, kind of built around VCV rack. That way we can all have the same gear and, follow along, do the same stuff. And hopefully I'll be doing that at Patchworks next month and recurring after that. But if you are interested in something like that and you're not in the Pacific Northwest, hit me up and maybe we could do a lesson where I run the workshop one-on-one. You can get some Tim tutelage. So if that sounds interesting, hit me up on Instagram or at podmodcast@gmail.com. All right, Greg Saunier, correct?
Yeah, who'd you think you were interviewing?
I don't know. With all the technical difficulties this morning. Thank you for joining me. This is a little bit of a sidestep as far as, usually I talk to, modular or super synth specific people, but
really? I didn't even know that. I should have prepared.
Well,
okay, synthesizer, sine wave, square wave, sawtooth wave.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
See, you can hang. Yeah.
Noise, right?
Yeah,
resonance, filters. How about those VCOs?
Oh man, so many VCOs. But yeah, I've been doing it for like 5 years, and I'm more interested in just like the artistic aspect of things. So I've been branching out a lot, and
okay, fun.
Some of the fellas from Tortoise on, and so it hasn't all been just weird modular stuff. But
do you realize that John McIntyre and I were in the same electronic music class in college?
No shit.
And had the same teacher and everything.
Really?
Yeah. We were both amazing. Trained on the same Korgs or whatever.
Really? I had so he does has a duo with Sam Prekop, also from Sea and Cake, who he is also in, and it's like a modular synth duo. And
fun!
I saw they came through town not too long ago, and they actually, in between their Seattle and Portland shows, stopped by and we did an episode in here. It was pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I haven't seen John in so long, but I really like his music and Sam's.
Yeah. Great guys, super nice. So yeah, I'm just like, like I said, I've been doing a weekly show for over 5 years, and I just kind of want to talk to the people that I want to talk to. Sometimes, like outside of just the synth world. I can only talk about synths so much, before I'm kind of like,
okay, that's it. Everything that I've said so far about synthesizers, that's it. We're done. There will be no further mention of envelopes, of monophony.
I like tuning. That monophony.
Yeah.
It sounds like a game that takes too long that people.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, what non-synthesis questions you got for me?
Well, I actually I always start with the same question. I like to ask. I feel like sometimes there's no distinction between these two, but was there an artist, song, or moment where music first entered into your soul, and the first time you can remember being very touched or moved, and then what was that transition from listener and lover of music to wanting to be an active participant.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, I think that that's a pair of totally good and valid questions. But I think that, and I don't think it's just me, I think first musical experiences, formative ones, happen prior to even the ability to form memories.
I totally right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, there was some little video on that came through some social media feed that I saw just last night of, you know, what do you call it when you can see into the womb and you see a fetus developing,
Like an
and
ultrasound, or
yeah, that kind of thing, and the mother was laughing at that moment, and you could see how the fetus shook. In what rhythm did the fetus shake? And it's about but it's just a laugh, and that, I mean, instantly my mind went to the association of bouncing in rhythm, to a release of endorphins, which is what a fetus would experience in that moment, because that's what the mother's experiencing. So that association is like built in. It has nothing to do with what radio station you listened to when you were
right.
5, or what section of the record store you were into when you were 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's like, I'm living here in Tucson. It's been spring. The number of birds that have been using my backyard as a hangout zone. Again, it's just kind of like, I don't just have to go to my own pre-birth. I can go back hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and look at the fact that something that could very easily be called music has existed prior to my species even starting. When you listen to Birdsong, you realize, like, we've got a mockingbird in the front yard recently, and it's imitating other birds. It's imitating car alarms. It's going just tirelessly all night. Oh, the rest of the birds, the doves and everything, start to quiet down at a certain point. This mockingbird is just going and going. Now, scientists aren't totally sure. I'm going to sound like an expert because I listened to the mockingbird under the tree for about 5-10 minutes and then came in and did some Google searches, but aren't totally sure. It's like, is this mating? Is this territorial? Is this purely for pleasure? Is it that the mockingbird hears another mockingbird a block or two away, also singing, and wants to be the one that sings more tirelessly? So takes even fewer breaks and sings even louder, so that the cat will go get the other one because this one's going to look so big and scary, But then it's like, even if you believe that interpretation, which sounds totally plausible to me, it doesn't. Why do we assume that a bird is less capable than a human of doing something for more than one reason? Right. So, for example, I might also have defensive reflexes. like if I get in an argument with somebody, I might do things to make my case seem stronger, or I might raise my voice to sound more threatening, or whatever it is to seem, some kind of like survival, built-in instinct. And but that doesn't mean that I can't also take pleasure in doing those exact same things.
Oh
That I
yeah.
can't that I can't become a particularly good debater and enjoy the the development of effective turns of phrase, or like particularly funny zingers, or
Mhm.
something like that. In
Mhm.
other
Mhm.
words, it's like if there weren't pleasure associated with other, or potentially associatable with various survival instincts. They don't all have to be mean ones either. They could be
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
compassionate, survival instincts. If there weren't pleasure associated with that, then why would we even have things like art forms? Um, why would we have Hollywood movies? Why would we have songs? And
Totally.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. My point there is that while the some very unsentimental people among us might want to say that mockingbird is purely just um, screaming for his life, you know, and not and just purely for some totally unromantic survival strategy, um, and it just shows their desperation and panic. I want to keep my mind open to the possibility that not just that mockingbird, but all kinds of birds and all kinds of animals make all kinds of sounds that, to my ears, it's not difficult to interpret in a musical way.
I love this answer for a couple different reasons that splinter here. So
Yeah.
I before, when I went to college, I studied human evolution. So I love that you took this
Oh,
like kind
dang.
of evolutionary, yeah, like, and then specifically focused on like um, North American primate evolution from
Yeah.
50 million years ago. So, you know, that's why I ended up becoming an electrician and then a podcaster because,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
so
that's
yeah, I
so
really like
fascinating
that.
to me.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, and I love that I like have this base knowledge to it literally has helped me understand the world better. And then bringing that into the realm of thinking about art,
Yeah.
because I love that aspect too. And another thing that you made me think of is lately I've been for the past couple of years I take my field recorder out with me when I go out in the woods, camping, or anywhere I go. And my parents actually live in a town called Ellensburg, Washington. It's pretty close to where the gorge is. Um,
Yeah.
so it's out in the country, and they have a big
We
like a
got a
pretty
really
decent.
great pair of parking tickets over near that gore. I mean,
Oh
the
shit!
speeding tickets.
Oh yeah,
We had just played Sasquatch,
Sasquatch. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and uh, and we had to make it to the airport
Oh
to catch a
shit!
flight to Europe.
Oh
And
my god.
John Dietrich, our guitar player, was
Hmm.
driving, and not once but twice driving from Sasquatch to the airport, he was pulled over.
It probably was just around Ellensburg because that's where they set a lot of those
Yeah.
speed traps with bastards. That yeah, the state patrol
Anyway, you were
headquarters
in
is
the middle
there.
of a
So no,
yeah.
no.
What you got?
So yeah, so my mom, I've been going out and helping out with my mom. Long story, but she's doing well now. But so I
Hmm.
bring my field recorder and all my different mics, and I set it up in the yard, and I just let it record overnight.
Hot
Um,
stuff. That's amazing.
because I just love to listen to it because I've
Oh
got to
yeah.
this point where kind of what you were talking about, this, all these birds going off and stuff, like there there are times that I crave listening to that in the same way that I crave listening to a certain type of music. And
Yeah.
I
Why
find
not?
it's more and more often. And so when you're talking about these birds singing and everything, I'm like, I go back to like an evolutionary like pontification, thinking like,
Yes.
okay, that could be some root of why, a root of this love of this changing of melody, we'll eventually
Right.
name it.
Right.
Because if you're around a bunch of birds who are all singing to each other, maybe they're all
Right.
telling each other what's going on. So you can get some clues to what maybe be going on around you predator wise. So,
Oh yeah.
the people who enjoyed hanging out with the birds stayed alive and got to,
Yeah.
just like that kind of, I like thinking about it in that kind of
Definitely.
way.
I
So,
mean, I was just talking to my mom yesterday about this very thing. She lives in Tucson. They got bird feeder in the back, and um, it's like the, her backyard is always full of birds, just constantly because she's got this feeder. But then once in a while, it will suddenly be absent of any birds. She's like, "What in the world happened?" And then always 5 minutes later, a hawk
coyote.
appears.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you realize, how did they know? And it's like, well, they were talking to each other. You just heard it as background noise, but if you're tuned in and you're listening to the finer points of what they're singing to each other, you would also have known.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
a hawk on the way. Get out of here, or you're going to get eaten. um, and I do think that it's melody. Obviously, that's what it is. I promise not to mention monophony, but that's what we're talking about here, a single line of melody. And but it's fascinating as people become interested in listening to birdsong. They start to realize that it's more than just there's some birdsong, or hey, that sounds nice, um, or oh, I can identify which bird it is with this app on my
Right.
phone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that you can actually start to map out what it is these birds are singing, as one might analyze a musical melody made by a human being. Okay, it stays in this range for this period of time and then suddenly shoots up at the end, or
Mm-hmm.
or like this thing repeats 4 times and then stops and then goes to this other thing and repeats 5 times. It's
Yeah.
like
Totally.
songwriting. I mean, it's like you can, a lot of the ways that you can describe, if you decide you want to listen that closely to a bird song, a lot of the mental engagement that you might you know pursue as you're listening to it is incredibly similar to the kind of mental engagement you might have if you were trying to pick apart, what makes this Paul McCartney melody,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
distinctive,
Mm-hmm.
or this Beethoven, melody. Like, what is it? What's the profile? What's the thing that sticks out about it? What makes it recognizable? What makes it memorable, etc. Now, I think that it's hard. That's kind of like an intellectual, like analytical approach to either one. But then what is it about this Paul McCartney song or this Beethoven piece that might bring a tear to the eye? That's where it gets harder to say, like, okay, am I emotionally moved by this bird song? Maybe like if I hadn't heard that bird in a really long time and it brought back some memory for me. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's where it gets a little bit more far out.
Yeah. Well, so this kind of touches on something that I haven't really talked. I don't remember talking to anybody about it in depth, but like this question that I have, like, why is it on Monday, you know, of 20, Monday of last,
Yeah.
3 months ago, um,
Yeah.
I just wanted to listen to Crying by Roy Orbison all just on repeat all day. And like every time I
Right.
heard him go into that big thing, that like I get that
Exactly.
swell. But then like 3 days later, I want to listen to Lightning Bolt and I get that same
Right.
charge. And if I listen to Crying, it doesn't do that to me again, but it will later when I crave that. Like, I mean, it's obviously like chemical and mood and everything, but like, how is it that some
Yeah,
things move you so profoundly, but it's not, you can't just keep going back to that well. It has to kind of be, you know what I mean? Like,
that's right. Absolutely, I know what you mean. I mean, context is everything, and things that are going on with your life are obviously, that's like most basic thing.
right,
Um,
right.
and it's like either you were already feeling like crying, or you were already feeling like banging your head and
Hmm.
like and and
That's a
having
good point.
adrenaline,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
or
yeah.
it's that you needed to cry slash needed a rush of adrenaline. You were
Right.
lacking those things, and
Hmm.
something inside you was demanding it. Um,
Okay. Well, I'm going to
I
take that
have
one
all the
further then.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have it.
So like, okay, so because I really like that. So okay, maybe I feel like, let's just say crying because I use the song crying. Maybe I feel like
Yeah,
crying, or I need to cry. Either way, I like both of those.
yeah,
Why is it that crying does it for me on Monday, but then listening to, like Whitney
yeah.
Houston on Thursday is
Right.
is what's scratching the itch. And they're
I
not,
don't. I mean, think of it like diet. I mean, I feel like, okay, I really need some vitamin C today. I need an orange, you know? And then tomorrow it's like, man, that orange yesterday sure was good. Let me have another orange. By the fourth day, I'm like, okay, I'm getting tired of oranges. Let me see if there's a grapefruit. I do think that music is undervalued as a human need in general, particularly by um, capitalists who don't want to pay
yeah,
musicians.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that a lot of work goes into creating the illusion um, that music and other art forms as well are kind of like icing, kind of like stuff you do for fun on the side. They aren't
Hmm.
things that anybody really needs.
Literally take it for granted too. Like that
Yeah, exactly.
that
Well,
that phrase
that's
has been
another thing that
overused, but
capitalists do. Exactly,
totally. Hmm.
because if all music is available all the time at the touch of a button, guess what? Your one particular song that you recorded it over there in Tacoma is
Hmm.
worth, it's worth nothing.
Hmm.
Or it's worth 0.0000001
Hmm.
cent or whatever
Right.
Spotify will pay you if your
Yeah.
song gets
Right.
streamed. Um, and but I mean, beyond me just like complaining about underpayment that I think is widespread in the music industry, as it's been taken over by another industry, which is the surveillance industry, the tech industry,
Hmm.
which is only using music as a bait for them to
Absolutely.
get,
Yep.
to
Hmm.
track your whatever, your stuff, so that the ads can be more effective. Um, Besides just dealing with those numbers or whatever, I'm saying that it's just a general misunderstanding that music is nothing. First of all, nothing but pleasure, and nothing but a kind of a hobby, or a kind of, or if you're even just a listener, it's just a sort of extra, without realizing that music means things um, to every generation of humans all across the globe for as
Hmm.
long as recorded history exists. And like we were saying before, probably well before even humans came to inhabit this planet.
Hmm.
It's like it's something that can be tied to food. So my example there was meant to be substantive. I think that it's like food, and you need it, and you need different kinds of it, and you need variations of it. Um, and sometimes And it changes as you change. And so
Totally.
that's why, that's a lot of why, to me, I mean, just to go on a tangent about that, a lot of, the sort of masterwork syndrome. Well, Beethoven's Ninth is the greatest masterpiece of Western culture, or how about just let's just investigate that idea of anything that Western culture contains masterpieces at all. If you're like Ron DeSantis or something, and you want to be constantly putting white people and Europeans/Americans at the top of the human heap. Um, and obviously, if you're into primate evolution, you go back to social Darwinism, you go back to Hitler, and you see this idea that really started to become industrialized and standardized at the beginning of the colonial period 500 years
Oh
ago,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
reached its climax at the end of the 19th century with phrenology and everything. This
Mm-hmm.
idea that white people are the master race, the superior race, and and as a way to propagandize that, you point to Beethoven's Ninth, and you say, "Well, look, that's better than the music from China. That's better than the music from Uruguay. Whatever it is." Um,
Because it's
and then
more
you
sophisticated by my metric of
Well,
sophistication
exactly.
that I
But then
created.
you invent a metric by which
Yeah,
it is better,
exactly. Yeah,
and then
exactly.
call that metric universal and call
Yeah,
that
yeah.
nature, which it isn't. It's just something you made up. But you
Mm-hmm.
get enough people to believe it, and so that's another reason why Crying works one day, and then Whitney Houston works another day, and Lightning Bolt works another day, is because there is no standard, and there is no one thing that is the answer for everybody every day all the time. It doesn't work like that. The world is changing. Your life is changing every day. Evolution is only half of what makes you what you are. The other half is your real life experience. It's nature and nurture. It's like what the things that you go through, the context you're living through, creates needs. It creates harms, and it creates new needs, and it creates new joys, and you learn to appreciate things that you didn't appreciate yesterday. I mean, it's like the first time I heard um, Roy Orbison, I didn't like it. It was an acquired taste for me. The first time I heard Beethoven, I didn't like it. That was an acquired taste for me.
Right.
It was an
Yeah.
incredible joy in acquiring a taste for something. And I mean, just as a member of a band that has been widely hated by many people, but then it's like I often enjoy the bad reviews and snarky comments that we get about our music because I've watched that same person learn to like it later,
Right.
and
Yeah.
realize that the more intense the hatred of the music, that's often the more intense the fascination with it, that makes you
Yep.
want to keep going back to it. And after a
Yes.
while, it's like, wait a second, okay, I still hate it, but this one part is kind of
Right.
interesting. Before you
Totally.
know it, it's your favorite.
And that's well, and then that kind of brings up something else that I love about just like one of my favorite experiences of being an appreciator of art, because it happens with comedy as well for me. But a lot of my absolute favorite things, even though I don't really like to use that word because like it's always changing. So crying's my favorite
Exactly.
song today, but tomorrow it's going to be,
Right.
so, but it's always the stuff that I found challenging at the beginning and didn't think I would like, and then put in the time. And now I've learned that
Right.
that's a thing. So if I hear something and I'm not like jiving with it, but I'm like, this is something about this perplexes me and I know I don't
Yeah.
get it. So I have to get it before I know if I like it. And I have to get it because there might be something in there that's great. And so
And
I,
not only
I
that,
yeah,
it's like what you're really saying, which I think is beautiful, is not that it's great. It's that your synapses just got great. Your neurons just got great.
I like
It
that.
was
Yeah.
your
No.
neurons that did the work.
Uh-huh.
And that's, I mean, another thing is exercise. We can talk about diet in relation to music. We talk about exercise in relation to music. And beyond the simple fact that I play drums in a loud rock band and get a lot of exercise from doing that, it's also you're exercising your neurons by forcing it to listen to things that are that it doesn't already know about and that are not comforting. Everybody likes being comforted, but there's also a contradictory drive in humans to that sometimes can be inconvenient or painful, but that is to learn new things and to um, because that is another survival trait. If you can't
Absolutely.
put it together, that while you thought what you've gone through your whole life believing that music was icing, the human ability to have an open mind to the possibility that, wait, maybe that was just propaganda and it turns out music is necessary for life, or is as much a human need as clothes, shelter, whatever. Um, uh, the one of those things about Homo sapiens is that they can do that. They can open their mind to a new thought that might challenge their previous
Mhm.
assumption.
Yeah,
And
willfully
to
go against what you think is currently true, or
exactly, and
you
be
know.
willing to do the no pain, no gain, be willing to
Mhm.
acquire a new skill, um, even if it's a mental skill. I mean, with music, it's the most obvious thing in the world, learning to play an instrument. I mean, when you first sit down to try and play guitar, it's like, what? Drums,
Totally.
piano.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't figure out, I'm never going to figure this out. And then you just keep at it. And it's like, wait, I actually can play stuff today that I couldn't play a week ago.
Yeah,
you
that's a
know,
great
and
feeling. Yeah.
practice is a real thing. And
Mhm.
that, I mean, at the end of our record, Future Teenage Cave Artists, I
I
play
fucking love
a
that record.
Bach, like chorale prelude on the piano. And it's like, it took me 3 months of practice to learn to play that.
Oh,
Like
really?
I first sat down, I'm like, I cannot play this piece. I really want to learn it because, but it's like at the end of that 3 months where I could just barely get through it enough to press record and do this
Uh-huh.
thing and be really happy with how it turned out. Like that doesn't just prove that Bach is great or
No.
that Bach is a god or some kind
Mm.
of superhuman figure from Western history that proves that white people are superior, or that the Baroque period is superior to 2023, or any of this nonsense. It also proves that I'm a genius and I can figure out how to do something that I didn't know how to do,
Totally.
and
Yes.
just
And
through application and work and open-mindedness and perseverance, I can actually grow. Is pretty cool.
I think that growth permeates through just your person, like how you like I feel like, learning how to play an instrument taught me how to learn how to listen to instruments, because now I'm looking for things that I
Totally.
want to. And then I feel like um that
Well,
kind of.
I just wait. I have to stop you there because
Uh-huh.
that was the second half of your very first question. And that's why I wanted to critique your question, was because
Mm.
at what point after you were a fan of music did you decide to start playing music? And you just proved that it goes the other way around. You just proved it. You said that by playing music,
Uh-huh.
you learned to appreciate music, and that's what I
Well, I
think is
learned
more
how to
likely.
listen to it and
Well,
dissect
exactly.
it. Right. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying. I
Yeah,
think the
yeah.
playing comes first, not the listening. I
Okay.
think that
Okay.
a baby is born and one smack on their behind and they're already singing.
They're a drummer. Yeah.
I well, no, the doctor's a drummer, but percussionist, a flesh cussionist, but but no, I mean, a child sings well
Mm.
before they start developing. Well, I like this band and I don't like that band.
I guess, yeah,
Singing is
that shows how kind of westernized I've been listening
right.
to this Ethan Klein, I think that, no, not Ethan Klein, what's his name, Ezra Klein podcast, and this he had this author on who talks about god, it's an acronym, weird, and I forgot, it's Western educated industrialized, and it's he talks about this
Right.
very thing of like just how much just the Western culture and everything, like just how much, and it's obvious, but he takes it into this really strange area of how much just your social setting and whatnot affects your view of reality. And there
Totally.
is so there is god, what is it, there was something he was talking about with different sides of your brain and how facial
Yeah.
recognition works. And
Hmm.
for years they just thought that it was one side of your brain that did it because that's what all their tests showed. But then they started
Right.
realizing, wait, people who don't have written language and aren't taught to read at a young age, their brain works differently with facial recognition. So they're
Exactly.
actually like seeing faces differently than we are because of this thing that was like disabled at a younger age by retraining the brain to do something against what was natural.
I mean, imagine the implications of that.
It's like, yeah,
How
exactly,
many how
like,
many things in our society we hold to be natural, obvious, human nature,
mm-hmm.
beyond question,
Well,
just
it's built into
basic
my
to
question. Like
yeah,
you're
right.
helping me deconstruct it, because I just realized
Right.
the active
Yeah.
participation thing in my head has always been like the reason I ask, because it's
Right.
framed within like, okay, well then when do you decide to start picking up the
No.
Western musical instruments to do the thing? You know what I mean?
No,
So,
every kid is doing music. I mean, come on, you're born a musician. If you're born a human being, you're born a musician. Um, uh, I mean, but let's start with the definition of the word music is also not a universal um, word that is always separated from speech or always separated from dance or always separated from work or always separated from mental health or physical health. Music is something that we've decided to specialize and section off as this one thing that certain weirdos do.
mhm.
But it's actually, that is an example of what you just described. It's a retraining from an early age of the mind to compartmentalize and say that it's a special thing,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
not essential. It's not basic to life itself. Um, and of course, who's to say, as a listener, who's to say what is and isn't music? I mean, we're sitting here talking about Birdsong. It's like,
Mhm.
well, a dictionary definition is not going to count that as music.
Right.
But it's not that far fetched to listen to it as such or to appreciate it as such. If you're
No,
talking about making field recordings, it's like the resurgence of, because of the cheapness of digital recording, portable digital recorders, in the past 10, 15 years, it's like, or 20 years, people love to make field recordings of things. It's so, or just with your phone, it's so easy to do
mhm.
now
Mhm.
that people are consuming the sound of crickets at night or rustling of wind and stuff like that. They're consuming it as audio material, just like they would quote unquote music. And
Mhm.
who's to say that that one should be called music and one shouldn't, if
Right.
a person is using it in a very similar way? It's really in the eye of the beholder, the ear of the beholder.
Yeah. Well, I've also something, just getting super into field recording and, Pauling Oliveros, deep listening, and
Yeah, she
Todd
was my
Barton.
teacher.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
that's so cool. That is
yeah,
so
Mills
cool.
College. Me and
Wow.
John Dietrich.
Oh wow,
Both were in her class. Yeah.
that is
But
so
anyways,
cool.
I keep stopping you. I
No,
finish what
no,
you're saying.
this is great. This is I love this. But as I'm getting into this, because I feel like if you get into modular synthesis, you eventually you get sucked into the deep end of John Cage, Pauline Oliveros, and all these amazing people.
Mhm.
So I started thinking of ways of like, okay, can I almost maybe not conduct my surroundings, but I came up with this idea that I still would like to do, where I'd like make like an artistic rendering of this map of maybe a decently small area, and then take a field recorder and walk this loop, and okay, 4 trips around this loop is a verse, and then we'll
Right.
go out here for
Oh
the
my
chorus,
God.
and then actually like have people be able to listen to this recording and have that map, but then go to that place and then do their own recording, and then
They
maybe like,
could play the song, do a cover of
yeah,
the song.
oh yeah, exactly.
It's really great.
And I think also you get to know, like, I got to know my new neighborhood when I moved down here. Obviously you look at all the landmarks visually, but
Yeah.
my neighborhood has a very specific, it has a voice. It's a long
Right.
voice,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
you
Intricate,
get to
complicated.
know
Yeah.
that, and that informs not just like it informs your audio spatial map in your head of your area, and I feel like that
Exactly.
just is a really fun, cool way to get acquainted with it and enjoy it and be part of it and interact with it, and I don't know, this is all getting kind of hooey and hippie,
Not
but
necessarily. I think that it goes back to your brain hemispheres example, because it makes you contemplate how much we have been trained to block out. So
absolutely, yeah.
if we've decided that facial recognition is only done with one side of the brain, and it's done in an instant, and its only objective is simply to identify the person and maybe remember their name, or just figure out whether it's someone you've met before, or blah blah blah. Figure how basically how that information, a piece of data that can be used, exploited for your behavior. You've decided that facial recognition, I mean, that's what AI does. Facial recognition software is exploited for a specific purpose, and says that's quote unquote facial recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the other 99.999% of actual facial recognition among beings that is now being deleted from the experience of facial recognition, if you boiled it
Right,
down to just
right.
an exploitatable, basically profiling to put somebody in prison or whatever. That's what
Mm-hmm.
AI facial recognition is basically used for.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
that's scary stuff.
it's funny to think about John McIntyre. I remember, his old band was when we were in college together. He was already in a band. He was already a professional musician, unlike all the rest of us.
Uh-huh.
He was drummer in a band called Bastro that
Uh-huh.
toured and everything. And I remember their CD that came out while we were still in college. The last track was all electronic, like the whole record. It was him and David Grubbs and some other guy or something, and rock band, whatever, guitar,
Mm-hmm.
drums, singing, screaming, super aggro,
Uh-huh.
kind of punk thing. The last track is suddenly all electronic, and it's like noises, and maybe done with a synthesizer. But we were sitting, me and John, listening to it at one point, and it kind of occurred to us that even the electronic noise track was organized with verses and choruses. It was
Uh-huh.
like there would be, all right, there was a, and then that would stop, and then it would happen again, and then it went,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And it was exactly what you're describing. It was,
Uh-huh.
even that could be structured in a way that like it was a pop song, and he was
Yeah.
realizing that sort of after
Yeah.
the fact, like it was an accident, but
Uh-huh.
his
Uh-huh.
brain just went there. And
Totally.
the
Yeah.
thing about Pauline that I would say, something that I learned from Pauline Oliveros that really stuck with me, that I think also relates to your interests as a musician. There's the traditional Western hierarchy that the composer is at the top,
Mm.
then the performer, then the listener, then then somewhere below that, the instrument maker, the artisan who made the instruments that you're
Oh,
playing
wow.
on. And she, and in terms of like who's important, who gets the biographies,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
whose work is the most deserving of analysis and praise and histories being written. Um, and she critiqued this hierarchy and said that no, actually, any musical event is an equal collaboration between uh, those parties. And there is no hierarchy, and one isn't more important. They're all necessary. And when I think about modular synthesis, I mean how much the maker of the module is the the initiator in some sense. They're the first step, and how much, we love to think of the technologies that we're using to make music as being these sort of um, blank technologies on which we could do anything. But modular synthesis, and since that's become a hobby for so many people, you start to realize how much it's like, well, no, like if I make this module, I'm like totally influencing any
Abs-
player.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
influencing what kind of music they're going to be able to make with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if GarageBand comes built in standard with your laptop your iPhone or something like that, it's like, oh my God, I can do anything. Well, it's like, actually, no, you can't do
No.
anything. And
Yeah.
it very strongly influences what kind of music you're likely to make with all
Mm-hmm.
these pull down menus and built in sounds. Sure, there might be a large library of sounds, but it's not an infinite library of sounds.
Right. Right.
And it's actually pretty difficult to create from scratch new
Mm-hmm.
sounds within something like GarageBand. And you start to think like how much that's also the case for not just music interfaces and music software, but like all the applications that all of us are
Totally.
using so constantly, is being like our options and our choices are being totally limited down to this incredibly narrow band of possibilities by
Mm-hmm.
some tech bro in Silicon Valley. And who knows what their
Right.
morals are, and who knows what their priorities are. They just want to have a job, they want to get a raise, like that's their priority. Their
Mm-hmm.
priority is to impress their boss.
Right.
That's the person who's creating the aura that we're all like living through nonstop.
It's
And
pretty,
it's
yeah.
like, yeah,
I think that is actually one thing that is so appealing about a modular synthesis to a lot of people is one,
yeah,
you're getting out of the box, and everything's been so in the box for
yeah,
so many people for so long.
exactly.
And yeah, I totally agree. Like, a lot of these modules, they have their job, and they are influencing the way that you're using it or making music. But when you have five of those, that becomes exponential, and now you do
Yeah,
have quite a cool. And
yeah,
something else that I've also really enjoyed is doing this for 5 years. I've talked to most of the makers. I mean, there's a lot more now, and I've become good friends with a lot of people who design modules. And what I've really liked is seeing, like, holy shit, I see your personality coming out in your modules. Like, I've messed with your modules
totally,
enough and hung out with you long enough to know that
exactly.
there's this guy, Eric Schlappy, and he has his company Schlappy Engineering, and he's the nicest fucking guy in the world. And he makes just like
Yeah.
hardcore fucking, when he plays live, he's pumping his fist, but he's like just the best. And
Yeah.
his modules are absolutely genius, and I feel like they are a personal,
It's like facial
representation.
recognition. It is that. Yeah. I get it. I mean, that's cool, And why not? Why shouldn't it be?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think
So
what
it's
we what the mistake that we sometimes make is that other instruments that aren't synth modules are somehow don't have a whole personality and a whole history, and a set of dispositions, whether political or emotional
Mm-hmm.
or historical, behind them. And so the violin, or the piano, um, is like, we like to think of it as just a neutral blank template on which we can write or perform any kind of music. But no, they are historical artifacts that come from a very specific time and place and a specific ideology, and they're inseparable from you know colonial warlike European cultures. Those are the ones that created the piano and created the violin. um,
Well, the
and
piano too is literally telling you how to play it. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly. It's just a map. It's a
uh
map
huh,
of like, here's how you should learn music. It
right,
goes
and it's
from left to right,
constrained.
up to,
Hmm.
from down to up, low to high. Um, and Yeah, at the octave, it repeats.
Hmm.
And that's just, sorry, that's nature.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
better
yeah.
learn it now while you're a child. Um, and it's like the instrument is really hard to play anything that you'd want to listen to on, unless you practiced it for like 10 years.
Right.
Children are not appropriate music makers. They're not. We don't listen to concerts of children. You have to practice it this long. How about the fact that equal temperament? The octave is
Hmm.
divided into 12. Yes, every octave is the same. Yes, that's nature. Whatever person decided that the octave is divided into 12, that person was right. That
Yeah,
person
yeah,
was a
yeah.
genius. It's Darwin. It's evolution. It's just, well, that's what we came up with, and we've got the fact that the whole global population now uses that 12 note equal tempered scale to prove that it was natural all along. No, it
Right, right,
doesn't prove
right.
Americanization. It doesn't prove, corporatization. It doesn't prove the
No,
takeover or the
it just
colonialism of,
it just
the
shows how
globe's
far the reach.
population.
It shows how far the
Yeah,
reach of that is. You know. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
And
that's something
what
I.
you keep erasing. Imagine all the things that you erase by substituting. No, there's only one limited language, is the one that everyone is the lingua franca of the entire human
Hmm.
population now, and everyone must speak it. Think of all the, John Dietrich, the guitar player in Deerhoof,
Hmm.
one of he and Ed. John's wife, um, is a linguist who studies, dying languages, and it's
Oh,
like,
nice. Uh-huh.
it's like five grandmothers,
Oh my God. Yeah.
of, five Native American grandmothers still speak this
I. W-
language anymore,
yeah.
and it's like it's about to that whatever things, that language as rich as English. You could do all the things that we're doing here, all the worlds that are built. Think of all the books, that were
Hmm.
written, all the movies, all the songs
Well,
that
and
were
just
sung, all the
the different
conversations that were ever
interpretations
had, and that.
of what of lived experience. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
like
That's the human tool to figure that out, and it's like, here's an entire tradition of one that's just about to be
just
wiped off the
yeah.
off
I
the
worked with a
planet.
small
And
band. They were actually not even. They weren't a tribe. They were a band when I worked over near the gorge actually.
mm,
For a public utility district of all places, but I was in their like
oh,
cultural resource department. So
interesting.
I worked a lot with this. We'll just call them a tribe. I just don't want to put them on
Yeah,
blast here, but yeah, there
right.
was very small tribe. I became really close with a lot of them, and
Wow.
got to go but yeah, I think there was 20 or maybe 20 people who still spoke the language, and they're trying to teach the children the language. But these kids now are your everyday, elementary, middle school kids
Of
that are
course.
going
Why
to
wouldn't they
Western
be?
school, and they're listening to, pop and hip hop and whatever's on the radio, and they're playing sports, and they're, playing video games and stuff. And, like, it's not their fault. They're kids. It's not their fault they're not interested in this language that only, you know, So yeah, it's
Exactly.
just
And a language that might be harder to speak,
oh yeah,
harder to
for sure.
understand.
Hmm.
So, like, I think that this often comes into play with children. I mean, going back to the food thing, it's so easy to think, breakfast cereal, sugary breakfast cereal,
Hmm.
candy, the kind of stuff that's marketed to children. Children biologically, because of evolution, are hardwired to seek sweetness, to
Hmm.
seek sweet things. So what does a corporate CEO do? Oh, well, I got an
Big
idea. I'll make
sugar.
something
Yeah.
that's even sweeter than what they can find in the wild. And they'll gobble it up, right? And they'll cry and cry until their parents buy it for them. And
Hmm.
at the out the other end will come massive profits for me. So,
Hmm.
the exploitation of of things that may have served an evolutionary survival purpose at one point in human history, but still exist kind of like an appendix, that don't. Um,
A vestigial characteristic.
Vestigial characteristic that can be over emphasized and
Well, it
exaggerated
can be,
and
yeah, it can, yeah, exactly, and it can
and
be
exploited,
hijacked and exploited,
hijacked.
which is
Thank
the
you.
real,
Exactly,
it's the
exactly.
real dark, sinister thing about a lot of, like, yeah, and this often comes up because, like I was just mentioning, seeing people's personality come out in their modules. Like these are
Right.
artists. I think a lot of modules are works of art, literally.
Yes. Right.
But the thing is, and even I'm doing this podcast and I'm trying to do my hustle because I don't want to be an electrician. I don't want to be a
Right.
construction worker. I fucking hate it. So like,
Journeyman, no more.
yeah, no more. I was, but no more. And but a lot of me and my friends, who are makers, and it is the capitalistic side of it is the hardest to navigate for us because we're not naturals at it. It feels weird and gross, but like
No one is. Yeah.
you have to
You have
try
to
to
do it.
do it,
Well,
and
that's just it. That's why it's like, okay, you don't blame those little kids for not wanting to go through the pain of learning their parents' native language.
mm-hmm,
But in a way, because they're so tempted, or their parents' generation's native music.
mm-hmm,
But in a way, since they're tempted away by things that are sweeter, like English is sweeter because it's spoken everywhere and it's on TV and it's on the radio and it's in every song that you hear. And capitalist music, or American music industry music is sweeter because it's been tweaked deliberately to be sweeter, and
mm-hmm.
that's what. And you can't blame the kids, but you kind of can't blame the musician either, because like
No,
you, like me, I would like to pay my rent, I would like to eat.
mm-hmm,
And the only way to do it is to compete in a marketplace filled with other sweet things. And if you don't make it sweet enough, then who's going to want to deal with it? and
right,
and so you're forced to compete in a marketplace. People always talk about, it's like, well, the best thing wins, or the most popular. The most popular is candy,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's the sweetest.
The most
Just
popular
add
has
more
been
sugar.
lobbied for and had a campaign. That's
Yeah,
like
thank you.
there's been,
Exactly.
yeah,
And,
like
and it's
yeah,
not about merit. I'm not even sure that something like merit exists when you're talking about music, but it's painted as merit. Oh, that means that Taylor Swift is the best music because it got the most plays on Spotify.
mm-hmm,
But even Taylor Swift, I think, would be hard pressed to really say that out loud. Oh, it's because my music is the best music. Maybe at an award ceremony, I don't know. But it's like, no, it's just the music that was pushed the hardest by a marketing machine, and
and
it's not
designed.
just. And the music itself, exactly, is designed to be sweet in such
Mm-hmm,
a way that it's easy to. It tweaks, it hijacks the vestigial um, trait inside a human that you want to hear recognizable patterns,
and it's
just
yep.
like the birds do.
Mm-hmm,
It finds that evolutionary trait and pokes at it and tickles it.
Mm-hmm.
And really what it does is satisfies it.
And
Now,
and yeah,
yeah,
does it pacify though? Like, is
it
it a way of,
pacifies it. That's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
like so and then this is where I get maybe a little conspiratorial, but I don't think
Yeah.
this was maybe like a grand plan by anybody, but I think it's just something that happens that is a very convenient other outcome of capitalist
Hmm.
endeavors of just, yeah, okay, just keep them unchallenged and comfortable and with their sweets, and they won't, because if you're listening
The
to,
opiate of the masses thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
right,
Except we've already identified another evolutionary characteristic that isn't going away anytime soon, which we've already discussed in there, and this is the contradicting one. This is
uh-huh,
the one with that humans, in addition to seeking pacification, opiation, comfort, familiarity, ease, are also driven to seek,
novel,
and not just because they're cool and because they are curious. The curiosity is a survival thing where they will have a survival advantage if they have the ability to learn new things and to
mm-hmm,
go through the pain of learning something new. That is actually a survival technique to self challenge, having to deal with hard things, having to fight, having to battle, having to push yourself to if it's exercise or if it's learning a new language or if it's learning an instrument or if it's
meditation or
just
whatever,
or
yeah,
just learning a history of the United States that isn't quite the one you were taught in school,
mm-hmm,
and learning hard facts, that maybe are not comforting to hear and that
mm-hmm,
maybe implicate you, in a long history of oppression. Um, that instinct is also there in a human being. And
mm-hmm,
so,
mm-hmm,
yes, the capitalists are constantly attempting to hijack the one that's seeking sweetness, but where they continually fail and where they continually fall short is that the human is not actually satisfied with that. And that they always seek something more challenging. They
right.
seek something more, and they are curious. We are curious, and the capitalist project keeps failing in that sense. As
So you're
hard as they
saying there's
push it,
hope. You're giving me hope right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, but it's like I mean, I think that there's hope. I mean, hope could mean a lot of things. I think that you don't even have to. Hope is something about the future. I'm
Right.
saying even right now, you can just look at the present and already say, well, there's a lot of us having conversation you know, where it's like maybe we don't always. It's not like someday in a bright future, people are going to finally
Right.
choose music
Right.
that isn't just sweet music. Even
Mm-hmm.
in 2023, most of us choose music that has sweetness and sourness and bitterness,
Mm-hmm.
and has vitamins and stuff like that in it.
You just
And
described Deerhoof.
yeah, exactly. Sweet and sour,
Sweet and sour and has
exactly.
vitamins. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's salty and it's bitter, and um, and it's like yeah,
Sorry, I
it's
totally derailed
you
you with
don't
my bad
have
joke.
to. No, no, I think you're absolutely right, and I don't think it's just Deerhoof. I think that
Well,
you
I'm
know,
drawn to that create. I think that's one thing that I'm so drawn to Deerhoof about is
mm,
this the I hate the how much this word's used, but the I won't even use it, but the balancing and the contrasting
yeah, yeah,
between um the tension and relief of that tension,
yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
that's what I get a lot out of, like, because some of Deerhoof songs are like the sweetest, catchiest, like put on at a party and everybody's gonna love it. And then some of them you're gonna
Right.
put on and you know you guys are all going nuts and people are like, "What the fuck is this?" And that's my
Yeah.
favorite kind of realm
Well, you're
to
very,
listen to
very
and
kind.
make.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I figured
um,
I had to talk about Deerhoof a little bit, but this has been such an amazing conversation that,
well, before we conclude it, there's one thing I have to ask because I always want to ask this to an evolutionary scientist, and I don't meet them every day. So you're in the hot
all
seat
right,
now because
I'm out of the game for a long time, but I'll do my best.
okay, but that's no excuse. You still have to answer my question.
Okay.
Um, I think to tell me if I'm barking up the wrong tree here. Every time I see a pop scientific kind of like news story in a newspaper or a magazine or a website or something that has to do with evolution and why we do this and why we do that and why it's better, always they equate something that helped humans or any other species survive with some kind of value judgment that it's actually better. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. I just feel like I've been swallowing a lifetime of propaganda that somehow, and in fact, I mean, that does go back to Hitler. It is the social Darwinism idea. It's the
Yeah,
idea that war makes us great. It's the idea that if you show yourself to be more fit for survival, that is actually, you are more valuable. And I'm kind
absolutely.
of like, well, I'm sitting here as a 54-year-old person with no children and no plans to
Hmm.
have children. And I'm like, well, does that make me a worse person because I didn't propagate my species correctly or something?
Right,
And
right,
lots of
right.
people don't have children and lots of people
Yeah, me
can't have
neither.
children.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, and there's something to even, an argument even to be made for is, how many more generations of human children
yeah.
are really going to enjoy a particularly pleasant or full life on an uninhabitable planet or an
Totally.
increasingly
Yes,
uninhabitable planet. um, and does this instinct to propagate, is that, why do we assume that is like of greater value, that's better?
absolutely. This is something that it gets into what a lot of people would say is dark territory, but that line of thinking
Yeah,
always kind of makes me like wonder, like, well, like how long do you like if you were to told that humans wouldn't be around anymore in 200 years, would you be sad?
right,
And why would you be sad? Like, and do
right.
you like every like the sun's gonna you know it's gonna supernova someday, so even
Right,
if we somehow kept earth inhabitable, like there's an expiration date no matter
right,
what.
exactly,
And then so it's
definitely.
just like, how long, like, so what's the point? These
Hmm.
sci-fi movies where they've got this one intrepid astronaut going out on this big thing full of like all these like fertilized embryos to start a new colony. It's like,
Yeah,
who the
exactly.
fuck's idea is that? Like,
Yeah,
because I don't feel compelled to do that, but I don't. Yeah.
right.
But to
Yeah.
answer your question, there's kind of a, I'm going to take like a three-pronged approach, just like every annoying scientist does.
No, no, no.
But
I
this
want all three prongs. You
it
give it to
goes
me.
to my point is like scientific speak for one. Like, there's a lot of jargon, so it's kind of hard to navigate. A lot of times new discoveries, um you know in order to read that paper and understand it, like
Right.
that's predicated on you having a pretty good foundational knowledge in that literature already. So
Exactly.
taking that and trying to turn it into not only just like a 200 word article for Scientific American, but it also has to sell the Patagonia,
Oh yeah.
clothes that they put in the for the for the scientists. So
Thank you.
therein like lies a huge problem. The translation from actual academic to, because
Right.
oftentimes with science it's like, so we made this discovery and we think this about it, but that raised all these other new questions, so we still have to go. And people don't want that. People want answers.
They
So
just want, here's the new answer.
yes, so you are always getting a bunch of bullshit, especially about human evolution. And I think everything that we were talking about today, with just the hijacking of so many
Hmm.
different parameters of just life and reality by
Right.
capitalism. Yeah, but so that filter, why it's filtered through that is, kind of the same reason why everything is, but specifically with anthropology, we call it the bad
Mm.
old days of anthropology and psychology, because
Right.
there were some psychological experiments that were pretty fucked
Exactly.
up.
Make your
Um,
stomach turn. Yeah.
yeah, and what you notice when you look at this whole, post Darwin through social Darwinism, which had nothing to do with Darwin,
Right.
but the goal of science is not to prove anything; it's to continually try to disprove something. And if enough people take it from enough angles and can't disprove it, then we can at
Right.
least have some faith in that. But there's still, science is a
The goal
philosophy,
of science. Right. Totally.
right?
Right on.
So proving something is you can't do that. So I think that also is a hard pill to swallow for people who aren't trained in the scientific method. Um,
Right.
and where was I going with this? So like, yeah. So, oh yeah, what
The
I'm
third
saying is like
prong.
this whole part of this whole battle days of evolution, or battle days of anthropology, they were continuing to disprove themselves on like first try. So they were doing good
Right.
science. We found out that
Right.
cranial vault doesn't mean anything. We found out that cranial
Right.
shape doesn't mean anything. Found out that phrenology doesn't fucking mean anything. But
Exactly.
they just kept coming up with new ways because they were trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. They
Right.
wanted their assumption that
Exactly.
white race was. But then if you go
Yeah.
back to that, who called who called who white, or who considered
Right.
who white? That's never been consistent either. So there's, it's
No,
literally,
obviously
there's no
not.
such thing.
Yeah.
I feel like human, like race in humans is almost like, is for me it's like almost like gender, in the sense that it's a
Right.
social construct, and there's a, it's, we call it clinal variation, and the most easy way to describe that is,
I don't know
okay,
this word.
let's,
Kleinel.
so basically it's almost like spectral. Think of like a
Yeah.
color
Yeah.
spectrum where
Yeah. Sure.
you can't tell where this color turns into this color. So walk from
Right.
South Africa to Norway and tell me where,
Right.
latitudinally, or
Right.
that people's skin color. Okay, that it changed here. So here,
Right.
there, it doesn't do it.
Right. I
So
see.
I think that is, going through that whole filter. So, and then the third thing I want to say about all this is, when we're talking about why do humans do this? Like, why do we do this or do this? There's a lot of, you can do a lot of fun hypothesizing and, game
Right.
theorying things out, but there is
Yeah.
no way to test if we are bipedal, because we had to get up and look over the bush because had to see a jaguar. You can't
Exactly.
test that, so you can't prove it.
Right.
So you
Right.
can have a lot of fun ideas, but so it's kind of, when you have all of those things swirling around, just every scientific documentary you watch on TV and everything you
Right.
read in a magazine, not a
Yeah.
journal,
Right.
always take with the grain of salt that they are trying to make something exciting, and they're also trying to sell you Patagonia stuff.
Patagonia. Yeah. You got it. Oh man, that is so good. Thank you. Thank you. That
Thank
really
you.
made my day.
I
Yeah.
never
I
get
love that.
to I never get to exercise these muscles, and I'm glad that I haven't
Yeah. Your three
completely atrophied.
prongs. Three-pronged rant. I love it.
Oh, well,
Cool.
Greg, I've really
All right.
appreciated this. It's been so nice to meet you. I don't want to take up
Yeah,
any
really
more of your
fun.
day,
Yeah.
but yeah, this has been awesome. And if there
What a
anything,
great
I
chat.
always like to have people scream something from the modular mountaintops if they'd like, and it can be whatever you want.
The modular mountaintop. Yeah. Come see Deerhoof on tour.
Hell yeah.
We
Highly
got a bunch
recommend
of
it.
shows coming up. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I saw you guys play at Chop Suey, your first show ever after the
After
pandemic.
the
And
yes.
that was so awesome.
Thank
And
you
then I
for
just saw
coming
you
to that.
guys. Yeah, I just saw you at Numos too, the last time you were in Seattle. So
Oh, thanks.
yeah,
Numos was really an amazing show for us. This
yeah,
last time, one thing that we really appreciated was that every single person in there was wearing a mask.
yeah. Yeah.
We had made a mass request. Numos opened the doors while we're up there blasting as loud as we can. I'm banging on the drums as hard as I can. They have the doors wide open to, what is it, 4th Street or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So there's ventilation. Everybody's wearing a mask. And we just, that was probably the safest we've felt on stage at any show, in the past 2 years, because it can get a little nerve-wracking sometimes.
Well, especially when
we really do not want to get COVID for a lot of reasons, but just for incredibly obvious reason that if we do, the rest of the tour is canceled, and
and that's your
lose amazing amounts of money. Yeah, so
no, that makes total sense, and also like you're just the nature of your job puts you in physical proximity with lots of people, hundreds, different people in different places, night after night after night. So it makes total sense. You got it. Right on. Well, I'll throw all the appropriate links in the show description, and I want to try to. My goal of the year is to try to get every member of Deerhoof and every member of Tortoise on the show. So I'm 25% of the way through Deerhoof, and I'm 3/5 through Tortoise.
You're going to have to write to something other than the Instagram, which is how you got me, just because I've been running the Instagram lately, so that I'm the one who ended up seeing the message. I'll forward it along if you want to try and nab the rest of the gang.
I would love that. Actually, because Satomi's birthday is same as mine. And
no way! You released
February 9th, yeah. And I think you did. That's when you released Actually You Can. And we had just bought our new house, so I was floating, and it was my birthday, and I had the day to myself, so I went out and did some field recording. But on my walk down this beautiful walk on the Puget Sound, I was just rocking out to Actually You Can, and it was a great day.
Cool. Thank you. That's beautiful.
All right, that's our show. Thank you so much to Greg for an amazing conversation. Thank you for watching or listening. If you would like to catch Deerhoof on tour, please visit their website, link in the show description. Also, thank you to Mountain Singers for the track submission. If you would like to be a featured artist on PodMod, then send me a WAV file or a Bandcamp download code, and we'll get you on. Thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. Don't forget about the cool posters and t-shirts that I have available. If you would like to support the show on Patreon, head over to patreon.com/PodularModcast. But if you don't want to sign up for a recurring monthly thing, I totally get it. There are other ways to support the show. You can have me make a music video for you for one of your tracks, or maybe I could make you a video for you to use for live visuals during a set that you play in the future. So if that sounds interesting, hit me up. Also, if you're interested in maybe doing a one-on-one synth lesson, let me know. And thank you to all the show sponsors: Patchworks, After Later Audio, 4MS, Novation, Bastel. Go check them out. Links in the show description. This week's secret word is waste management, because I just read that over there on our Tacoma solid waste management bin. Until next week.